We are going to watch the Piers Morgan debate where we had Cenk and Dave Rubin finally squaring off. We've been waiting for this one for a while, so let's go.
I mean, many people saying if you carry on down the road you're going in the last few weeks, you will be a fully fledged member of MAGA before we know it.
I'm not like Dave Rubin, a giant sellout fraud who changed all of his positions and is totally useless.
Ooh,
and it
slow this
shouldn't
one
even
down.
be on here. He's just a waste of space.
Piers, it's barely worth responding to this ridiculous buffoon who's the joke of the industry, but
that's what us disruptors are doing. He really does want to drain the swamp. And when you begin to drain it, well, all of those creatures start showing their teeth and hissing and wailing and snapping at you. And
She knows all about that. I mean, being so into Beetlejuice and all.
and I think it's time now to drain it once and for all.
That's what she was looking for in that guy's pants. She was looking for the snake. She's like, my favorite part of Beetlejuice is the snake. I must find Snake. Where's Snake?
Popular wisdom is that politics has never been so bitterly divided, but scratch beneath the surface of our everyday outrage, wash away the red and blue tribal paint, and there's a more interesting picture. President Trump has demolished the traditional divide of right and left. A classic liberal believes in free speech, free markets, and the freedom of individuals under the rule of law. A classic lefty is anti-war and highly suspicious of institutions. They support homegrown manufacturing jobs and the working class. Above all, they're very good at selling a vision of how things could be better for everyone. Right now, that all sounds a lot like, well, MAGA. Voters clearly agree. Black voters, Latino voters, young voters, working class voters, and voters with no college degree have all flocked to the big red tent. Even First Lady Jill Biden now appears to love Trump and loathe Harris as much as anybody. But the big problem with big tents is that the people who've been inside them for the longest are highly suspicious of newcomers. In a moment, we'll debate this and more with a star panel, all of whom have copped a public backlash for shifting their positions. But I'll begin with the OG of the political trans movement, Dave Rubin, creator and host of the Rubin Report. He wants to respond to my recent interview with his former colleague, Anna Kasparian. Well, Dave, great to have you on Uncensored. So look, we had Anna on. Very interesting pivot that she's been making in the last few months. But obviously you and her have a bit of history, and in the interest of fair-minded balance, this is your chance to say what you want to say by way of response to her.
sure, funny, I enjoyed your intro there. I guess I did sort of get on the trans thing early. It just wasn't about my genitals. Look, Piers, you're absolutely right. What Donald Trump represents, and then I will address the Anna situation, but what Donald Trump represents right now is something that is well beyond conservative versus liberal or left versus right or anything else. It's a restoration of the American dream. It is a wide tent party that has now brought in classical liberals, not only like myself, but Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, who will be in the administration itself, or someone like Elon Musk, who was basically a default lefty his entire life. And it has brought them in conversation and in government and in culture with Republicans who tend to be more for the old institutions and more for, let's say, pro-capitalism, things of that nature. This has created a pro-America movement that I think almost everyone in America can get on board. Now, as it pertains to Anna, yes, I was part of the Young Turks Network about a decade ago. We were very, very good friends. She was invited to my wedding. We hung out all the time. I did see her on your show about 2 weeks ago.
Well, for those who didn't, let me stop you there, because for those who didn't,
Sure.
I want to play two clips. One, this is for those who may be coming cold to this. One is a sort of mashup of some of the things she said about you before. Then I'm going to play a clip of what she said on this show 2 weeks ago. So let's watch the two things.
He was lazy when he worked here. He's lazy now with his ridiculous show where...
Random question, True Tech. Recently got a laser cutting rig for my woodworking. Does that work on plastic resins, like from a 3D printer? Or do you think that would just completely melt the resin?
He proves time and time again that he doesn't know anything. He has no political identity. He is not an honest actor. He is not an intellectual. He is a fraud. But if you are someone who considers yourself libertarian, consider the fact that Dave Rubin is a public figure who represents you, and he doesn't actually genuinely believe in your ideology. And he's going around the country embarrassing you.
You need to at least know your shit and know how to back up
Michael.
your argument. Even if it's like a BS argument, you need to have an argument. Yeah. And he doesn't even he doesn't even do the legwork to be a grifter, right?
Look, I don't know. Maybe
One of
I
my
was wrong
favorite
about...
things seeing that. Do you realize how well Michael wears a suit and dude, that fit him perfectly. That was a nice suit.
Dave Rubin, but I just felt that he, first of all, after he left TYT, he did lie about us, and that bothered me because we were still friends, and I didn't understand what was going on. He did leave on good terms, so it was weird. And, he kept saying that he was this classical liberal, but had trouble defining what that meant and had trouble reinforcing or at least backing up some of the claims that he was making about, his newfound identity.
So Dave, there we have it in all its inglorious fashion, all the digs she had at you, then what she said online, which she herself, of course, was pivoting. What's your response?
Well, first off, I should note you don't have 10 years of videos of me saying anything about her, because we did leave on good terms. As a matter of fact, when I told her I was leaving, we went to Cenk on Melrose. I took her out for sangria, and she cried because I was leaving, and I was bringing my producer with me. But putting that aside for a moment, if I can't explain any of my ideas, well, somehow this became a New York Times bestseller where I lay out all my classically liberal beliefs, and I've discussed them with you many times, and I believe in laissez-faire economics, and I believe in individual rights and all that. But what I would say, I think she's a little confused and perhaps was lied to by her employers about some of my behaviors or something like that. But I love the idea of anyone going through their own political evolution. You know, one of the things is that people go through it often in varying speeds. So I always say some people swallow the red pill and some people snort it, right? Some people just wake up overnight and they fully see it. I think one of the things that you have to do when you wake up is realize that many people have gone through this before you and that you might have wronged some people on the way there. So I was very glad to hear her say that she might have been wrong about Dave Rubin. Look, all it takes, honestly, like I know you know this, Piers, you've been in this game longer than me. You don't get any apologies in this business, and I don't like making things really about myself in that sense. But genuinely, if there was a mea culpa there or just a simple apology, maybe I didn't see things right about you, Dave, or whatever, I would gladly welcome anyone. And I don't mean to make this about her. If you're waking up to the ideas of liberty and limited government, especially post-COVID, and seeing what this ridiculous Democratic Party has become, and you want to agree to disagree and dive into the ideas and have that battle, I will do that with absolutely anybody. So look, an apology probably, I would say, would be warranted, but I don't sit there and wait for it. And I think there are much bigger forces at play here than just the interpersonal battle of two people.
Out of interest, I mean, if I could make it happen, would you debate her?
Yes.
On Uncensored?
100. I said that on my show after we played that clip. If she, I'd be happy to do it with her live, just the two of us in studio. If you want to be the host or moderator, I'll do it under any condition, because again, I think there's something, I think it now represents something that could be unbelievably good for America.
Yeah.
Progressives who have called everybody racists and bigots and impugn motives. I mean, people just watched that compilation right there. Always going after people in the worst nature. If you've now woke up, and from what I understand, I've seen some of her tweets, she's now being attacked the same way she attacked me. So I would say, much like Bruce Willis said in Die Hard, welcome to the party, pal. But we can be on the same side, even if we still have political disagreements. Okay, we don't agree on the marginal tax rate or the immigration rates or something like that. If you love America, if you think this place is fundamentally good, if we still have a country that will offer more opportunity for any other place, and you want to be part of that, yes, whatever the circumstances are, or the moderator is or isn't, I'd be happy to do it. But if it's you, that would be great.
You know, what's really interesting about what you just said, I totally agree with you, by the way. But if you look at Trump's picks for his cabinet, for example, they are so diverse in terms of their views, right across the board. I mean, if they all got together, they'd be arguing about all sorts of stuff, which I'm all in favor of. This kind of, rigid ideology where you have to all sign up to one viewpoint about everything. There'll be people in there that completely disagree with RFK, for example, about some of his views. Good. Have that debate.
Of course.
Have that debate. This is what democracy is supposed to be built on.
Of course, this is the beauty of what Trump is doing right now. And really, you can connect that so deeply. I mean, I would recommend anyone go back on YouTube. You can find Donald Trump on Phil Donahue or Oprah or a whole bunch of these shows back in the 80s, and he sounds like a Democrat. Yeah. So Donald Trump is not a traditional conservative. I would actually argue that Donald Trump's own political evolution, probably, Piers, is much more in line with guys like you and me than say George Bush or Dick Cheney or someone that you think of as a sort of standard bearer for republicanism. So the fact that he is now going to bring in people who quite literally were running against him for president only 6 months ago, RFK Jr., and someone who ran against him for president on the other side, Tulsi, only 4 years ago, that shows you what's bringing them together. What's bringing them together is a love for America, a realization that we have been on the precipice of giving away the most precious, beautiful experiment in human history on how to free people ever. And I think Donald Trump actually now sees that. I also think that post-assassination attempt, I think he has a renewed fervor and sort of realization of what his role in life is. And that's the opportunity that, again, not to make this about Anna specifically, but anyone that's going through a wake-up, we know.
I actually pointed out, like, when he was talking about Luigi, how he was just like, he didn't even bring up how, he might, maybe, I have a different opinion about this because I've been targeted. None of that. So that's why I'm right back to thinking like, yeah, he knew.
So many people have woken up. I mean, look, for me, I think it was 2016. I did that Wild Left video for PragerU.
Screw it. Don't know why.
You want everyone to get there the day you do, but you have to be gracious when people come around one way or another.
Yeah. Well, let's bring in my other panel members, because some of them are definitely going on a very interesting journey, including new MAGA enthusiast, Cenk. I said that deliberately to wind him up. The host and founder of the Young Turks. Libertarian Dave Smith, host of Part of the Problem. Lindy Lee, the DNC Finance Committee member and advisor, and former woke activist turned YouTuber, Amala Ekpunobi. Well, welcome to all of you. So, Cenk, I mean, many people saying if you carry on down the road you're going in the last few weeks, you will be a fully fledged member of MAGA before we know it.
Yeah, there's absolutely no chance of that. And I'm not like Dave Rubin, a giant sellout fraud
Wow.
who changed all of his positions and is totally useless and it shouldn't even be on here. He's just a waste of space.
Wow. Really? After all Dave said about coming
yeah.
together?
Yeah. Yeah, no, got no interest in coming together with utter frauds like Dave Rubin. So, brother, you telling me that when you were on the Young Turks, you were Mr. Progressive and you agreed with us 100%. Now, all of a sudden, you agree with Trump 100%. You're not saying something nuanced like we are. Hey, you know, when the guy gets shot at and he puts his fist up, that's courageous. When he does the McDonald's photo op and it works fine, no problem, right? If he wants to cut the Pentagon, great. Those are progressive positions. Anti-corruption, progressive position. Anti-war, progressive position. But you change all of your ideology overnight and you expect us to believe that that's real? I don't think it's real at all. And I want an apology from you for all the crazy, outrageous lies that you told about the Young Turks. When is that going to happen, huh? Wow. When are you going to admit that you changed all your positions for money? Okay, well, what position do you still have that's in any way a so-called classic liberal? You fraud,
Dave.
Piers, it's barely worth responding to this ridiculous buffoon who's the joke of the industry. I will say this, Cenk, I haven't spoken to you in 10 years. I haven't spoken to you in 10 years.
Fraud.
I don't think he's a fraud or a joke. I think Dave Rubin is, for what it's worth, I think Dave Rubin is one of the most...
Wait a minute, but Piers isn't right-winger. I'm not a right-winger. He just admitted it.
Influential and significant voices out there right now. And I admire his honesty about the journey he's been on, Cenk.
Piers, I appreciate that, but the thing is, what Cenk just proved is exactly what everyone in America, and I would say all over the world, is getting over. Nobody wants what he just offered up there. Not only does no one believe it, and he had it prepackaged and ready to go, and it's complete drivel. Yes, I sold out. It's just it's so nonsensical. Again, Cenk, I'll gladly send you a signed copy of the book, and you can read all of my thoughts. And if you're anti-corruption and you're anti-war, you should be on the Trump train. But your endless hatred, the division that you sow, calling everyone racist and white supremacist, all of that stuff, it's why you're not respected. But I don't mean to get into the personal side of that. I'm talking about now something that culturally has shifted, and everyone can see the grift that you're up to, trying to sort of dance with the thing. But it's just not necessary, and I don't think that many people will buy it.
Well, Cenk, let me put to you, Cenk.
Okay,
something that Laura, hang on, Cenk. Cenk, hang on. I'm going to read you something just to see your reaction. But Laura Loomer called you out on X, as you know, and she said this: "You are the radical left, Cenk Uygur. You're a con artist and an opportunistic grifter who's gotten rich off demonizing President Trump, calling his supporters fascists and Nazis, promoting open borders, glorifying Hamas, and pushing conspiracy theories about Trump for 9 years. If you want forgiveness, get on your filthy knees and pray to Allah, because you aren't welcome on the right and you aren't ever going to find a redemption arc, no matter how hard you pander." And she goes on and on. I'm going to keep calling you out every time you try to move an inch closer to many on the right, because you're too dense and too dumb, because they're too dense and too dumb to decode your subversion, but I'm not. So look, there are lots of people on the right who think that you're on some great move here to, as she puts it, wiggle your way into the middle and over to the right, so you can then poison MAGA with your, as she puts it, subhuman political takes. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Okay, so look, this is people like Laura Loomer and Dave Rubin are the exact problem. And I think actually somebody else on this panel that was part of the solution, that's Dave Smith. And I want to come back to that in a second. So when you have people like Dave Rubin switch all of their positions, what happens is when you go to do nuance and you say, hey guys, hold on, let me explain, hold on. Yeah. Hey, go pleasure Trump again. Go pleasure Trump again.
Do you know that
he goes from Bernie to Trump and pretends. Come on, brother.
I tell people what I believe in.
What do you believe in? You believed in something yesterday. You don't believe in anything today.
Yeah, what position? What position do you think I hold that I don't honestly believe?
Can I answer the question?
Yeah.
Can I answer the question? Can I answer Trump?
Yeah, what position do I say that I believe that I don't really believe? Go ahead.
Brother, you went on Fox News with Tucker Carlson. You went on Tucker Carlson on Fox News and said gay people, that the fact that the fire department was recruiting gay people was why there was forest fires. You're a national embarrassment, okay?
Right.
You pleasure those guys for a living.
You can pull up the clip tomorrow if you want. Okay? I was talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, that you shouldn't hire people based on their genitals or their sexual orientation. And we now all know that. You have been one of the prime pushers of all of this neo-racism. I believe in meritocracy, that whether you're going to be a doctor or a firefighter or a basketball player or anything else, you should be hired on your qualifications, not your genitals or sexual orientation or skin color. Yeah. That's actually America. So you can keep trying here.
Yeah, Cenk, finish your point, and then I'll go to Dave Smith.
Listen, yes. When this country desperately needs to unite against the establishment on things we all agree on. So things like all the populists hate corruption. All the populists hate war. By the way, Dave doesn't. Dave will demand that we start every war for Israel and pay for all of Israel's war. So he's been establishment on that all along. But when you go to say, hey, can we get an agreement on things that we agree on? the left pushes back because they're so afraid. They got traumatized by the Dave Rubins in the world. They're like, oh, if you take one step, not even in their direction, if you allow the right wing to take a step in our direction, they're worried that you're going to be a fraud like Dave Rubin and change all of your positions overnight. So my friends on the left, do not get scarred by this fraud of a man. There are other people like Dave Smith, who
let me bring in
is
Dave
a
Smith.
libertarian.
Right.
We disagree on other issues.
Let me bring in
but
Dave
we
Smith.
can actually unite on the things that we care
All
about.
right. Let me bring in Dave
In
Smith.
order to unite, you got to get past the frauds like Dave Rubin.
All right, Dave Smith, welcome back to Uncensored. Obviously, things have kicked off. I actually thought there might have been a coming together moment, and not the way it went, but it's gone the opposite way. Let's just take what Dave Rubin was saying and then how Cenk responded. But it seems to me that this big tent thing of Trump, I mean, it's very real. His popularity in America has never been higher than it is today. He's got an incredible mandate. The Republicans basically now are in charge of absolutely everything. You've got everyone who formally distanced themselves in 2016 racing down to Mar-a-Lago to kiss the ring and so on. I mean, it's a real opportunity, but it's undeniably an extraordinary coming together of people from all types of political views and so on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just say for the record that I like both Dave and Cenk.
So do I. I agree.
Cenk did work in a compliment toward me, and Dave, you weren't able to do that, so I'm going to be on Cenk's side on this issue now.
Dave, you and I have some differences. I've never gone after you. I like you, absolutely.
That's true. Listen, I don't look bigger than your guys like personal beef. I think it's what's going on here is really kind of amazing. Well, okay, but I'm just saying if you zoom out here, I think since this last election, people are focused on this kind of realignment and the new political dynamics in America. But if you look back 8 years ago in 2016, during this election in both major political parties, you had essentially civil wars. I mean, Donald Trump came in and took over the Republican Party against the will of the establishment and the donor class. In 2016, the RNC was floating out the idea of changing the rules, as you remember well, Piers, all the way up until the convention. They were floating out the idea of trying to steal this thing.
Ironically, I actually disagree with you on this one, Duke. It is a shame that all these clownish grifters are big in media. The only one that really isn't the clownish grifter in this entire panel is the one speaking right now, and that's Dave.
From Donald Trump. Of course, that same year, the Bernie Sanders movement had to be flat out cheated by the Democratic establishment.
Not Dave Rubin, Dave Smith.
So it's not as if these things haven't been building for quite a long time. I think what happened in this election is that the thing that unified people around Trump was one, like Dave, like you said, me and you disagree on a lot of issues. I think a lot of people who ended up supporting Trump disagree on a lot of issues. The one thing that united all of us is that we opposed the blatant corruption of the establishment and the corporate media apparatus, which is nothing more than the mouthpiece of the regime, constantly in the business of lying to the American people in service of the regime. And this is so this is how you're able to get a liberal like Bobby Kennedy and a liberal like Tulsi Gabbard and somebody like J.D. Vance or somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy, why they can all come together is that they all oppose the corruption that permeates D.C., that has truly, profoundly degraded this country over the last 25 years. And I think that there's, just with that basic understanding, there's a lot that people, even with very different political views, can agree on.
Yeah. Amala, I want to come to you, but I want to play a clip from Stephen A. Smith. This is where he's calling out people who say he's on the right because he's been criticizing Democrats. Let's take a listen.
No surprises. You're just continuing to piss me off. Why? Because every time I make a comment that's critical of the Democratic Party or the left, I get accused of being a pundit for the right. I voiced my concerns about Joe Biden and his ability to serve as second term as president. Then Biden stepped on the debate stage in late June and revealed what many suspected. He embarrassed himself. The White House and the Democrats eventually switched to Vice President Kamala Harris when he stepped away. I pointed out my concerns.
I hate to say that this was a bad look.
With the campaign and the Democratic Party along the way.
Especially after the report, the report that came out about Biden. Yeah.
And a voice for the right.
Yeah, I mean, I just find it inexplicable.
Sid
Someone like
welcome
him.
to the program. Yeah, Dave Smith is a true believer. Yeah, he is. He definitely believes in what he believes in. So I can say that, I'll listen to him a little bit more.
Can pass genuinely constructive criticism about why Democrats got it wrong. And immediately he has to be branded a right-wing headbanger, and that's the only reason he's doing this. When in fact, a bit of serious introspection from the Democrats is obviously massively overdue. What do you think of it, Amala?
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with your characterization. I think this is a big part of why they lost this past election. And it's this sort of dogmatic fervor that they have for everybody to toe every single part of the ideology that they represent. And I had a very similar experience. I used to be an extremely radical leftist. I was working for a left-leaning organization, organizing students to work on all of these different woke campaigns that were circulating at the time. And as soon as I started to question the narrative or question the fabric of the ideology I was pushing, I was immediately, thrust out into the open to sort of explore these ideas and figure out well, maybe I'm on the wrong side here, because I was with a group of people that were claiming to be tolerant, but as soon as you have an ounce of skepticism, they are ready to push you aside and label you as far right. And I think much to their dismay, what this is going to create is a group of people that feel so isolated that they are willing to indulge in right-leaning ideology, what they would characterize as far right, but at this point is just, reasonable common sense. And as they are abandoned by their side, they're going to look to others, and they're going to be accepted because we are able to explore. We are actually promoting skepticism.
That's where I recognize her from, is the PragerU stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lindy, I want to play a clip. This is Kamala Harris overnight. I don't know why she thought this was a good idea to come back out before Christmas as everyone's licking their wounds, and almost like she was in campaign mode again. It's like, please, do not do this. But let's take a listen to what she had to say.
Get some rest over the holidays. Spend time with the people you love. I believe family comes in many forms. There's family by blood and there's family by love. I urge you then, after you have had some rest, in fact, I challenge you to come back ready to chart our path to the future. Chin up, shoulders back.
Chin up, tits out, and watch for the shoe.
Forever impatient for change.
That's a wrestling.
I mean, Lindy, no disrespect to her, because she's a perfectly nice woman. She would not inspire me to open a bag of chips. I mean, seriously. And I think that she sort of personifies now the ghost of Christmas past, as does Biden. The Democrats have got to move on quickly, haven't they?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. She's indulging delusions of running for governor in California in 2026 and perhaps even running for president in 2028. And I just want to echo what a lot of you guys already said.
No. Let her run for governor. That would get her out of the race. Oh, that'd be refreshing. Then all these freaking neolibs could just shut the fuck up on like Facebook, Twitter, or wherever the fuck.
This past week has been harrowing for me. This Saturday, I went on Fox and Friends
loud.
and I said that Democrats have a stench of loser hanging over them.
Yeah, they do.
As soon as I said that, there were boycott campaigns against me, unblock, unfollow campaigns. I lost 40,000 followers.
Well, no, it's because you're a grifting POS. Like you can't conflate the two. I'm sorry.
Really?
That's not
in 4 days.
That's not how that works. No, it's the way that you just thoughtlessly just were like, yeah, you know what I'm gonna do? I was the campaign finance chair for the Democratic National Committee. You're telling me we lost? Okay, time to wear the red shirt on TV and start pivoting my views, because I want to get some exposure. I like TV time. I'm definitely getting more, TV exposure. And then she did the thing because she went on Piers Morgan. And then the left criticized her. I mean, let's just call Piers Morgan's program what it is. It's the place where the right can go to just it's their little support group. The left was mean to me. And then they bring on the leftists. Most of the time it's like Cenk, where it's like, Cenk was mean to me. And then they all sit here and bloviate each other, or bloviate about it, and then they blow each other.
People have called me the W word.
I was actually going to say they just sit there,
I don't know what we're allowed to say, but you can fill in the blank.
We're uncensored. Let's say it.
Wait, we're uncensored. Okay, they fellatiate each other.
That's what the word was.
Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Well, they called me a whore. They called me the C word. They asked for me to be deported, and you can just search for my name in those terms.
Yes, because you don't see how that could have been, the other side trolling the fuck out of you too.
Terms on X, and you'll see a bunch of them. So, all these so-called Democrats, the party of inclusion, the party of diversity, masks off. And it's even worse because they pretend to occupy the moral high ground.
They're doing it again, guys. They're doing the thing. The Democrats are the real racists.
The Republicans, they are who they are. But with Democrats, they pretend to be, so loving and caring and embracing of diversity. But all of a sudden,
they need to hear a conservative tell them they're correct in English accents so they feel smarter. Yep.
When I dare to utter
what C word, Catholic?
Any criticisms of the goddess Kamala Harris, I get ostracized. Me, after having raised tens of millions of dollars for the party. And I'm being called a grifter when all these years, I've said on TV, I've said to the press, I'm a conservative Democrat. This is not a switch for me. This is just me. This is who I've always been.
So you're an asshole.
And also, my donors are pissed. Oh. They raised $2.5 billion across super PAC.
All right, so we already know that she exists in the tax bracket between $300,000, $500,000
in the campaign. It's my responsibility. It's my duty of care to ask what the hell happened with that money. Why did we spend it? Why did we spend millions of dollars on 5-star hotels for campaign staffers? Why did we spend $500?
I don't know. Can we look through that and see if you benefited from any of that? Did you stay in a 5-star hotel? Did she go to the parties? Was she invited?
$1,000 essentially bribing Al Sharpton moments before he interviewed Kamala.
Reverend Al! I'm Reverend Al!
These are legitimate questions, but no, in the cult, you can't ask questions.
Yeah.
And leaving the Democratic Party or even questioning the Democratic Party is like leaving a cult. It's terrifying.
Yeah, Dave Rubin. I mean, that's actually really
She runs from one cult to another. I mean, that is how it works. Trust me, I've talked to enough Scientologists.
Listen to, isn't it? I mean, the idea that a woman who her only crime was to try and raise money for a pretty hopeless candidate, and obviously that didn't work. But the idea that immediately she raises criticism, legitimate and in my view entirely correct criticism of the party, she is abused in that kind of horribly misogynistic and disgusting manner. What does that tell you about where we are?
Sure.
Yes, because right-wingers aren't reprehensible fucking shit-eating douchebags that go on fucking every person. Like, you know how many times I've had just random right-wingers pop into my stream before I even had 500 subs?
Well, I would say, Piers, we have a living, breathing
my videos, I should say,
example of that happening on this panel right now, which is that what she just illustrated there is a bunch of attacks on her character and her.
Comrade Lennon, thoughts on Sneaky Cenk's right-wing grift? Well, my thoughts are, it wasn't as sneaky. I mean, I've always kind of viewed him as like he could just pivot back because he was always very open about him being on the right. But I don't know, man. I thought that with Anna starting it, that Cenk would start pushing back and also start trying to make the Young Turks like relax a little bit about, you know, the shifting positions. But nope, he doubled down, and now that's why everybody is calling it for what it is. Like I'm not going to call it a full-blown MAGA program like some people are, but I will just say the right-wing shift did happen. They are being way too charitable to Trump right now and the people supporting him. What they're saying about the Democratic Party isn't necessarily wrong. I will say that, but realistically, yeah, no, and I was just about to say, he took their poly market money. When you grift, you don't go back. Live from the poly market studio. Yeah. How the hell are we supposed to take that seriously? And it's funny because it's like, dude, this isn't even legal in the United States. How in the fuck are you going to sit there with a straight face and go, yeah, but we're the voice of the progressive left. Yeah, of course.
Behavior and saying awful things, and you can describe them as misogynistic and all those things. Look at everything that Cenk just said to me. These are
also welcome, Comrade Lennon, 1905. I appreciate you jumping in.
Just attacks, not on my beliefs.
Leave a follow if you haven't already. Thank you.
But on my character, which again, he couldn't illustrate one thing that I say that I don't believe. I woke up very early to the excesses of the left, what we now know as wokeness. I came out against identity politics, and Wait
a minute. Do any of you guys know if Jimmy Dore left before or after Dave Rubin?
Wanted to return America to what it was founded on, which was individual liberty and judging everyone by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. The progressive movement is wildly attached to something that brings everyone back to ancient hatred. So when you leave the left, as both of the ladies just pointed out, you will get unending hatred, usually having nothing to do with what you believe or you say. And again, I would just have anyone rewind the video and listen to the nonsense that Cenk said about me to prove that it still exists.
Well, Cenk, I mean, you did launch it.
He will surely abandon that progressive framing of all his reactionary beliefs. I don't know about that, because the one thing I'll say about Cenk is the fact that he can't really control himself in that way. So I don't know. Like when you say reactionary beliefs, it's like, but Cenk is like the ultimate reactionary.
A very aggressive ad hominem attack on Dave Rubin off the top, which was your decision to do that. But in relation to his specific question, Cenk, can you say one thing that Dave Rubin believes in today that you don't think he believes?
Donald Trump has YMCA. Isn't there a firefighter in there? There's a cop and an Indian. I'm not sure.
Hold on. Look, there's a couple of super important.
His joke bombed.
Important things to say here. First of all, in answering your question, look, Dave doesn't believe in any of the positions he believed in. Before he thought...
name one.
Yeah, this is nothing but gaslighting. Yep.
Affirmative action.
Name one.
In this. Okay, affirmative action. And now he says it's the worst thing in the world.
Affirmative action. I evolved. I used to believe in identity politics. Okay,
so you changed.
Like
you asked me to say...
Yes,
Why can't
you ask me to name something you changed on? I named it.
You're telling me I don't believe what I'm saying right now. You're calling me a sellout.
Did you believe the Russian propaganda you were paid for?
Oh, you are an utter
Did you believe the
buffoon.
Russian propaganda you were paid for?
I was not paid, Cenk. I was not paid.
You were paid $100,000 a video.
Oh my God, you clown! I would recommend anyone look into that to find out.
You can look into it, and that's the thing. He knows that the audience is not going to, and when they do, he's going to be like, well, I mean, it doesn't mean that it was Russian. See, it said Laura Chen.
A bit more on that. Cenk, how much when you took 1 mil from Jeffrey Katzenberg, what did that do for you?
And did I change my positions at all? Not 1%. Not 1%. Okay, can I just...
You might want to be careful here, Cenk. Everyone's been leaving the left for recently. Money is all on the right. Well, yeah. I mean, Anna at least went mask off with it, because the most mask off moment with Anna was when she was talking about Hassan getting his payout, and then they were talking about like how much money Hassan makes. She was just like, I can't believe this. I can't believe what I'm doing. And then she also made another comment about how like the right does pay better. So
what position do you think I hold that I cannot explain my
Jeffrey Katzenberg is in favor of... Okay, Jeffrey Katzenberg is a good guy, but he's in favor of Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris. I was against all three. What part of that is unclear? So look, Piers, there's three different...
Okay, but hang on.
Politics for a second.
Cenk, here's my point. The point Dave Rubin is making is, why shouldn't he be allowed to go on an evolution of his views? And why...
There's a difference between evolution of your views and then just doing a straight up grift. Like, for me, this is like, if I pulled a Dave Rubin, what that would mean is that tomorrow like January 20th, I just conveniently go, well, guys, I fooled you. Guess who's been a right-winger this entire time? I was a MAGA chud all along.
Does that mean that right now you can say to him, as you did, you don't believe anything you're
essentially what Rubin did.
Saying or believe now, when actually it's completely possible that he 100% believes everything he now says because he's changed his mind. Why can't he do that? And why don't you believe him?
I think that the left is scarred by people like Dave Rubin, who had a complete change. For example, Tulsi Gabbard goes from total progressive to total right-winger. On the other hand, RFK Jr. didn't go to a total right-winger. He still believes the things that he believes about the environment, about housing, about corruption, etc. So you have to be able to distinguish between the people who are doing it professionally, as I hate the word grift, but whatever it is that you want to call it, and the people who have genuine disagreements and genuine nuance in their opinions. So, for example, guys, there's...
me personally, I just see it as, like, if it's a slow evolution from, like, one minor issue, but, like, the way that Dave did it, he did it in a way where... And also, he did it in a way where he had a job on the right almost, like, immediately, so...
Three different branches of each.
In this space, that's how I would classify it.
Party. There is the radical right, radical left. There's the populist left and populist right. And
no, because I'll be completely honest. I hate the idea that anybody is just like, you changed your position. It's like, so we're not allowed to evolve. We're not allowed to change our positions with, being faced with contrary information to something that we were already thinking. Oh, okay. No, I'm with you on that one, Anna. And I hope I didn't,
the establishment of both parties. I despise the establishment with every fiber of my being. And I've been doing that same exact program for over 22 years, longest running show in internet history. And we've never wavered on that. But now the radical left, unfortunately, is doing what you're worried about, Piers. That the minute that they see anything where you say, I agree with the right, when they agree with us on something like anti-war, they go, oh my God, hold on, let me finish the thought. Let me finish the thought. And what people then say is, oh no, he's going to pull a Dave Rubin because these guys get paid to go fully right-wing and then they'll throw their own people under the bus. So they'll pick a gay guy like Dave to throw gay people under the bus. If you see me going after Muslims, if you see me going after people that I've always supported, then you have an issue. But part of and this is not a pivot, guys. We've been fighting the radical left for 2 straight years now because they say absurd things like, hey, if the right wing agrees with us, we shouldn't do it anyway. We had somebody leave the network because they said, everyone on the right wing is racist. If you agree with the right wing in anything, even if it's things that we agree on, that makes you racist, and it hurts black bodies.
All right.
See, that's absurd. Yeah. That's insane.
Of course it is. I mean, the irony is that you and Dave Rubin probably agree with a lot more than you're prepared to ever admit. You just don't think his views are sincere because he's changed his mind on a number of positions. By the way, I used to think I was liberal.
It's not just that, Piers. He lied about us 20 times over.
I have nothing in common with modern woke liberals. Zero. Let me bring Dave Smith back in. Let me bring Dave Smith back in. Dave, look, this is part of the problem.
Then you're just like, but I'm not a conservative.
Is that
God, Piers sucks. He fucking sucks. All right, I really do hate his, and also just the manner he's just coming off like, actually, he's just gross.
If people
he's just so fucking
the ad hominem
smug.
Stuff, they can find a lot of common ground where I think there's been a very rapid repudiation of a lot of the nuttier progressive left stuff, and you're seeing America actually through Trump albeit through he has his inflammatory rhetoric. But you're seeing America, I think, coming to a far more centrist place, actually, which is why he's managed to attract people from all different walks of life. I think that's what's going on. And you're seeing the people on the extremities beginning to look more and more irrelevant.
You know, a lot of times it's about how we use these words and what they actually mean. I'm not sure that centrist is the right word, but I do think, to your point, you know, if you have people who call themselves liberals and they are blatantly opposed to free speech.
I do love how when he sets up one of his guests to try it, like he'll like sneakily try to get his guest to agree with him on something, but then they don't, and he'll immediately go, and then it's time for coffee.
Which there are quite a lot of. You know, this has been very normalized over the last 10 years, really over the last 8 years. I don't mean to drive this into semantics, but what you're describing is not liberalism. I mean, this is just, and in a similar sense, like people who are, you know, anti-war or pro-free speech, the idea that that's considered like a right-wing position is just nutty. I mean, I think anybody who, it's like at this point, then these words don't mean anything. I think that in many ways, whether you call something centrist or radical depends on the current environment, right? So like if you were in the middle of Adolf Hitler's rise in Nazi Germany, being, you know, it would be a pretty radical position to believe in like Jewish rights. That today in America is a very normal centrist position that almost everyone agrees with. So what Donald Trump, again, I think the more correct framing here is the establishment versus the dissidents. And if you think about, everybody loves to brag about a convert. So when Dave Rubin goes from being kind of a progressive to being more of a classical liberal, everybody who's in that classical liberal camp loves that because they're like, look, see, this guy woke up and saw the light and he wants to be with us. And then the tendency of people who are in his old camp is to say, oh, no, he's sold out. But I'm not reading anybody's mind. I don't know what I treat everyone. I take them at their word. The point is that look, Kamala Harris was bragging about the Republicans that she had supporting her, right? But who were the Republicans that were supporting Kamala Harris? It was Dick Cheney and his daughter. And you know what I'm saying? Like all the establishment Republicans are the ones who joined him. Who did Donald Trump?
He's right.
Yeah, well, they were all of the dissidents. And, you know, Tulsi Gabbard, again, Jake, I get your point. I mean, she has changed on several of her views, but might that have something to do with the fact that when she stood up and criticized the war in Iraq, the blood-soaked monster who sent her there called her a traitor to her country for that? And so when you have that type of dynamic and you get viciously smeared in that way, what tends to happen is people go to a different group and they start listening to that other group. And maybe they get compelled by some of the arguments. Now, I'm not disagreeing with you that it's also true that you always have to guard against audience capture and perverse incentives and things like that. We all have to fight that force all the time. But it's also true that, you know, I remember there's some stand-up comedian after Louis C.K. got in trouble, and when he started coming back, they started insulting the people who were buying tickets to see him. And then they started saying that Louis C.K. only plays for right-wing audiences now. But their definition of right-wing was anyone who wants to buy a ticket to go see him still. So it's just like, what happens is that if one group is saying, you're a monster, we hate you, you're a traitor to our country, you should be punished forever, and the other group is saying, hey, we like your point on that, people tend to go toward the path of less resistance and find a new home.
Yeah.
But I would also say there's something deeper there, which is that people on the right are much more willing to agree to disagree. So you can talk to people.
That's fucking bullshit, and you know it. Oh my God, this disingenuous mother effer. Like, seriously, he's going to sit here and pretend that the right wing somehow is more cordial to leftist ideas, to agreeing to disagree. When any time that we bring up any social issues, that's all you guys can do is think about them and harp on them. Dude, I hate this shit. Like, honestly, this is what makes watching this so fucking hard.
Hey, he was running as a Democrat, and what happened? He got virtually nothing but hate from the lefties. By the way, for the record, I debated because RFK was for affirmative action when he was running for president. I'm not. We debated it on my show, so I can clearly lay out my beliefs on that. And he sort of at the end of it kind of admitted that I was right. You don't solve perceived former discrimination with discrimination of today. But what you will consistently find, what I know my good friend Amala has found over the years, is that as you wake up and you leave the progressive plantation, what you will find is people on the right that you're told are evil and scary, like Dennis Prager and Glenn Beck and Bill O'Reilly and all these people, that you may not agree with them on everything, but they will break bread with you. They will be generous of time and spirit, and you will consistently find that. And there's almost no version of that on the left. That is just simply true. And again, there's a living, breathing example of it right here.
Well, let me bring Amala in on that, because actually, Cenk, I'll come back to you. Hang on. Let me bring Amala in on that, because I've had the same experience. I find that I've interviewed a lot of people that I always felt were certainly way more right-wing than I'd ever been, and I really enjoy talking to them. I had really good conversations, and I could argue with them about X, Y, Z, and agree with them about this, this, and this. And the common ground was all the mad progressive left stuff, which most of it was nutty. But it was also based, Amala, on something you've picked up on, which is a denial of truth. And that was the key thing for me. When I saw the progressive left trying to convince me it was perfectly okay for trans women, for example, to compete in women's sport because they're women, when in fact we all know they are biological.
See, he couldn't even go one show without doing it, thus proving my point.
Biological men, and I respect their fact that they want to be trans women. That's fine.
No, you don't.
And if they want to be called,
no, you don't. No, you fucking don't. Stop with that. No, you don't.
She or her or whatever, that's fine too. What you can't do is erode women's rights at the altar of this movement. And that is where I realized the left were losing their minds and losing their track on reality. And you said it was basically a denial of truth generally. Was that one of the things that you would say was an example?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had tons of motivations for changing my political ideology and rethinking things. Number one being the gay firefighters. That was the first thing that really started things up for me. But I think it's a...
No, it had nothing to do with you seeing the fact that there was, offers for you to go with Dave Rubin and, get some of that bag from, Prager. Shut up.
The combination.
And the fact that they're using you is hilarious because honestly, that she's going to come out couple years later and just be like, the stuff that I dealt with behind the scenes.
Yes. With that example that you just used of this trans issue and in Title IX, we are failing to acknowledge how far left the progressive left has moved. And that's a big factor. A lot of people say, I didn't leave the left left me. And you're sort of standing in your positions and watching as people become more and more extreme. And for me, farther away from the truth and reality. Now, you couple that with this feeling of being lied to in that you've dedicated yourself to this ideology. You've worked to promote these ideas. And then you feel abandoned by this group. So we're building an equation here. On top of that, we have the other things that our panelists have mentioned, the smear campaigns, the attack that you get on the other end of even just trying to raise your hand and get a question in is just absolutely insane. And then you mix in a little bit of the acceptance that you get from the other side as soon as you're willing to hear them out and maybe accept some of their ideas. And you have a wicked combination for somebody really steering themselves in the complete opposite direction when it comes to their ideology. Now, I think if we're going to keep our logic intact, what you have to do is take in all the factors of that equation, sort of swallow it and stomach it for a little bit, and then meet the ideas where they're at and hope that you're being logically consistent without all these other factors of the acceptance and the smear campaigns and the hatred and the feeling of being lied to, and hope that you're driving yourself closer towards the truth.
As you're saying all that, Mediaite has come out with its annual list of most influential people in global news media. Last year, I was thrilled to be 20th on this coveted list. I've just been informed I'm now number 15. Joe Rogan is second. Elon Musk is first. And the citation for Uncensored, I rather like this. It says, ever wonder what it might look like if Mehdi Hassan and Sarah Palin went at it? How about Cenk Uygur and Douglas Murray? Piers Morgan Uncensored has you covered. Morgan is poised to thrive over the next 4 years at the centre of the action. I can't actually think of a better panel to be here as I read that citation out, because this is exactly what I'm trying to do. And funny enough, Joe Rogan, funny enough, had a little pop at me the other day, not in a bad way, but he said that he finds it all a bit too noisy, the debates we do. He prefers one-on-one, and I do a lot of one-on-ones too. But the reason I like this is I do think that when we get through it into the real nitty-gritty of what's going on in the world, bringing smart people together to thrash it out is a really valuable thing. And there should be more of it, not less. Lindy, let me just ask you before I want to pivot to another topic, but I'm horrified by what you've been through, and I'm really sorry you've had to go through that. I've had a lot of it myself. I always think the perfect...
It was my birthday, too, by the way.
Well, happy birthday, and I'm really... Well, happy birthday.
Fuck you on your birthday. It was my worst birthday of my life.
This, you know what? It's utterly racist. Never mind anything else.
It was my birthday. They made me cry on my birthday.
But you'll be stronger for it and better for it. And I think you've been an important voice in
funny.
this. Because the Democrats need people on their own side to put their hand up and go, hey, guys, here's the problem. Right? You may not agree with everything I'm about to tell you, but you've got to hear it. And there is a stench of loss. I would go further. There's a stench of political death about the Democrats. Looking at Biden, still the Democrat president, barely able to string a sentence together. Looking at Kamala Harris popping up when nobody wants her to, trying to tell people to fight. You just tried to fight, and you barreled $2 billion down the drain in being crushed by Trump. But Lindy, before we change the topic to the last one, where do you see this going? What are the Democrats going to do?
Oh, you're
Are they
right.
going to carry on villainizing people like you?
You're right. Here. Why am I hogging the you're right. There.
Or do you think that the coffee is going to get smelled at some stage and they're actually going to wake up and find a candidate that is more electable and find people like you a place in that tent to try and drive to an election victory?
Nope.
Piers, I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of this tent. I don't want to be a part of this craziness anymore. They're accelerating my rightward shift. I don't want.
Okay, well then don't be. Honestly, I mean, you got maybe 2 more months until you're completely irrelevant, and you'll only be brought on here, occasionally just to be used as the political tool you are.
This nonsense. It's just crazy.
That's gotta suck. That's gotta suck to know that you're such a POS grifting, or a grifting POS. Gotta get my grammar right. Just to know that that's all you are, is just a tool. And you're more than happy to be that tool.
And honestly, they're shrinking their tent. They're basically telling me to they're pushing me to bring my.
Go ahead, pack your shit, go to the right. Again, somebody actually said it right here. Anna, personal grievance politics. Yeah, you know what?
Tens of millions.
You didn't have any actual beliefs that were outside of who could make me the most money.
The dollars that I raise and can continue to raise to a different team that treats me better, that treats me with
Kirk. Piers Morgan makes me Bricky McBrickson.
Common
are
decency. That doesn't call me a communist spy. By the way, the communist regime in China killed my great-grandfather. They don't know my family's history. This is the first time I'm really saying it on air. They are calling me a spy for the regime that killed my great-grandfather. Let that soak in just for a second. That's how disgraceful they are. Yeah. And these are the people who call themselves a social.
Guys, the mean Democrats are calling her a communist because you know how this tracks with how, the mean left totally uses this on their side. Yeah, they use racism and they use the term communist. This dumb broad, you know what? No, sorry.
Justice warriors.
I'm gonna go 20s with this dumb broad over here.
They are dabbling. They are going headfirst into racism anytime someone dares to disagree with them.
Oops, I just did a sexist.
I don't want to be a part of this nonsense anymore. I want to be a part of the team that says men are men and women are women, and then men shouldn't play in women's sports. And I'm an athlete myself. I'm a marathon runner. I don't want to run against a man. I know I'm going to get trounced. That's just biology. It's science.
Of course.
It's not politics.
Of course. And
it's science.
It has been just a matter of clear, obvious fact. And people who've tried to defend it, smart people.
I have such little legs. It's just science. The big strong man will run faster than me. Come on, science.
To defend it have been disingenuous at best and actually disgraceful liars to themselves and the world at worst, because what they've allowed is this to continue to the point where we had that farce at the Paris Olympics when somebody who's got male chromosomes, reportedly, but it was pretty obvious, battered one female boxer into submission after 45 seconds, and the poor boxer said she had to quit because she'd never been hit that hard in her life. Ridiculous. People will die. People will die at the altar.
He's still on it, man. Again, born as a woman, lives as a woman, doesn't take any of the testosterone or any of that. Nope. But here he is, she has an XY chromosome and I don't understand things like that. So that just means she must be broader shoulders, more muscles. Make sure that she doesn't hit too hard.
Of this bullshit. I want to just pivot to
bullshit. No, bullshit is what you're doing. You disingenuous fuck. No, seriously, this one should be fucking called out by every single fucking person on this panel. The fact that he doesn't have a better example of an actual trans person in a fucking professional sport, he can only go to the one that was an actual woman with XY chromosomes, is beyond disingenuous, and he fucking sucks.
We've got a few more minutes. This is the story of the shooting of the CEO of the healthcare company, Brian Thompson, and something that the NYPD Commissioner, Jessica Tisch...
Well, I know what his chromosomes are. Cro-Magnon.
...said yesterday. Take a look at this.
Let me say this plainly. There is no heroism in what Mangione did. This was a senseless act of violence. It was a cold and calculated crime that stole a life and put New Yorkers at risk. We don't...
Oh my God, I'm a police commissioner.
...celebrate murders, and we don't lionize the killing of anyone.
Cenk, a report came out that said a huge number of young people in America were actually fully on board with this hot assassin and approved of what he'd done. To which I replied on X, effing morons, which is what I believe they are.
Of course you are, because you're of the class that has to worry about this.
What does he come to in society? Putting aside legitimate concerns about the healthcare system. And I have more than any of you, by the way, because I live in a country where healthcare is free for everybody. And if you came over here and fell over and broke your leg, you get world-class free healthcare, and no one will be over you asking for a payment for the bill. So I have strong views about it. But that's got nothing to do with the cold-blooded execution of an executive. And this hero worship of this guy, Luigi Maggioni, he's not a hero, is he?
No, he is. No, he is. He absolutely is. I'm so fucking tired of anybody pretending that he's not. No, this is what happens when you allow the system to keep permeating the way that it does. And you sitting here being a fucking apologist for it is going to get you lumped in.
So, Piers, I abhor...
And that's the reason that you are reacting the way that you are. Anybody who has the opinion that anybody who supports Luigi is just a bad person and they want bad things to happen.
Violence, and you know that on every topic, including Israel, Gaza, I always say the same thing, which is violence is both deeply immoral and deeply counterproductive. It's a surrender in the battlefield of ideas. So, but as you see that poll...
Also, will totally acknowledge that violence is what started every revolutionary idea, you know?
Piers,
Yeah, okay. See, this is how we keep being told, don't worry about the boot. Don't worry about that boot. That boot, I mean, yeah, sure, it's there. We all see it. We all know what the boot does, but don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it.
You can call them morons, and I disagree with them, so I understand your frustration. But at the same time, if you ignore why they're having this unusual a reaction to a killing, you're making a mistake. And the reason they're having that reaction is because we live under corporate rule. And now both right and
Jake's
left
right about
hate
this.
that corporate rule. And health insurance is an excellent example of it. According to studies, 76,000 people die every year because they don't have health insurance, because they can't afford privatized health insurance. So the core job of the government is to protect us, military, police, firefighters. And yes, health insurance saves our lives. We're the only nation on earth that doesn't have universal health care. We let our own citizens die for profit. So that is the frustration that is built up, and now being shown in an unproductive way through this killing and the support of the guy who did the killing. But if you don't go address that massive health insurance problem, you're going to get more and more of this, and you can get angrier and angrier, and we can all go into our separate camps. But that's not going to solve it. What's going to solve it is ending corporate rule. And the number one issue is that the establishment takes money from those corporate donors and serves their corporate donors.
All right.
Both Trump and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris took $700,000 from the health insurance industry to make sure that nothing fundamentally changed. That is a core problem. And if you're a Democrat or you're on the left and you push people out for saying things that are true, all you're going to get is a weaker and weaker party. Let's address the root causes.
All right, Dave Rubin, the poll was by Emerson College. 41% of 18 to 29-year-olds believe Thompson's murder was acceptable. The cold-blooded murder of a man, of a husband, a father of two kids in Midtown Manhattan is acceptable because he happened to be an executive at a healthcare company.
He didn't just happen to be, he chose to be, and he was not a good person. Enough of this. Enough of this.
And they disagree with some of
No, enough of the whole, he was just an innocent man. He was just an innocent father.
The policies.
Why don't you go fucking cry with that guy from CNN that was, you know, really, really sad that he didn't see any memorial down there for him. You know, oh, what happened to our humanity?
I mean, if it comes to that, then...
It's fucking putz.
If that is taken, extrapolated across the country, that's the future generation now in America. They think that murdering executives from companies whose opinions you don't like is now acceptable. America's in a very dark place.
And but you can only look at the fact that Americans think that way is why it's the dark place, not why they would think so. Mask off, baby.
Yeah, well, I can basically give you Cenk's answer without the but. There's no but there. It doesn't matter what you're aggrieved about. Everyone is aggrieved about something. Everyone has been wronged by somebody, a former employer, a health insurance agent, a doctor, a former boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it might be.
Cool. Let's go back and replay how these guys reacted to Nancy Pelosi's husband getting hit with a hammer.
You cannot take the law into your own hands, period. If you wonder why so many people think that violence is okay, again, I would only point at the progressives who for the last decade have been calling everybody racists and bigots and saying this country is run by white supremacists and capitalism's evil and the very founding of America.
Fucking cough button, you fucking unprofessional asshole.
Is evil, and then they telling them that climate change is going to cause the world to end in 6 years, and a litany of and that their genitals don't match their gender. All of these things have led to a certain psychosis in young.
Sorry, this one has actually really pissed me off, and I'm gonna just I think the writing is on the wall. Piers Morgan stuff, content on my channel might be limited soon. Because honestly, he's getting very insufferable to watch, to the point where I can rail off his arguments before he even does. I mean, I can almost pinpoint the exact moment in these debates that he's going to bring up the trans issue. And specifically, Ayman Khalif.
Also connected to the endless doom scrolling on the phone and social media, which made
Suit check, it was made by Toyota.
Everyone much more anti-social than social. But if you tell everybody that
it looks more like Yamaha, because we all know that Yamaha, because they spread themselves so thin, they don't make a good thing at all. Whenever I see a Yamaha piano, I'm just like, oh.
Boogeyman's coming to get you everywhere at all times, and you live in a horrible place with evil people who want to kill you, then you are going to have a mass mental health problem, and it's going to lead to people doing horrible things. But
you know what's sad? I'm pretty sure that my piano is a Daewoo.
Second, you do what Cenk just did there, which is but. So, okay, we've got all kinds of problems, but, well, then congratulations. Anyone can go out there and kill anybody because everybody's got a reason to be aggrieved. We are a nation of law and order or not. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, Dave Smith, I actually agree with that. I think the moment you equivocate when you talk about something like this, you are opening the floodgates for everyone to equivocate. Whatever their cause is, whatever their gripe is, the moment you start saying, well, that murder was terrible, but... in other words, trying to find an explanation for why it's not as shocking and heinous and disgusting as it obviously was, I think you're on a very slippery slope.
Really? Again, remember this, guys. Remember this one. Because there may come a time that we'll be able to go, hey, look. And then they'll go, well, you know, it's a little bit different. We're living in a different time. Goalpost move.
Whatever it is.
Well, I would certainly agree and I've seen a disturbing amount of it online and stuff like that. And so, look, obviously it's horrible to execution style kill somebody. And the whole premise of Western civilization and the Enlightenment and everything that we should consider good and advanced in civilization is that even if that guy was guilty of horrendous crimes, well, he gets a judge in a robe and a lawyer in a suit, and he gets to present his defense before he is convicted by a jury of his peers. You know, like the idea that you can just execute. First of all, it's evil. And also, no matter what side of it you're on, the outcome of vigilantism like this is just chaos and an awful place to live. I do think, though, that for people who feel that way, we should look at a poll like that and have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And I don't think that, I don't think Dave is completely off. I think there has certainly been a bunch of toxic garbage that has come to dominate university life that is very bad for young people's minds. I will say, though, that as a society, we have put the young people in this country in an awful position in many ways where they do have legitimate grievances. Now, I'm not saying that justifies, supporting anybody being executed like this. But the truth is that the big banks and the government got in business to prop up this college, which is essentially a government program at this point. The loans are given out by the government after many years of them being guaranteed by the government. We've cattle carded these young people into going into six figures in debt while they learn, for the most part, garbage. They come out of this, they're working at Starbucks, they're 150 grand in debt. My grandfather, in a much poorer, much less advanced economy, could go wait on a line and get a job after high school and support his wife who didn't have to work and raise their kids and have 2 cars and own a home. There is simply no path toward that for a huge portion of young people. And if we don't address that and we don't try to fix this situation, I think we're going to be looking at this very disturbing reality where more and more young people kind of celebrate the person who just went out and made from their perception, somebody who was in the establishment or in the winning class, made them pay. I'd also add very quickly that in the middle of that, just to add insult to injury, we still have Social Security, which is considered like a third rail that nobody, even the Republicans, will dare mention trimming at all, which is nothing but a wealth transfer program from these young people to a much richer group who have higher net worths and higher incomes and a lifetime of saving. It's the way young people have been screwed over in this society is very disturbing. And so, again, just to be clear, Piers, I'm not equivocating and saying oh, that's why it's okay that some of them are celebrating this. Yeah. But I think we should recognize this.
Yeah, Amalo, what are your thoughts on this?
I agree with what Dave
Dave
Smith just said. We should recognize the problems that are maybe underlying in this guy's motivation. I obviously don't think that retributive justice is the answer in any way, shape, or form. But to somebody else's point, I think somebody said the response to this has been sort of unusual or dramatic. I kind of want to push back on that. I feel like this is becoming a common response to anybody who, we disagree with losing their life. I think
I'm glad she looks so dumb with those cotton ball frickin' earphones.
For a lot of us on this panel, maybe one second.
She's going to look back at this in 2 years and be like, oh, I really wish I would have just gotten normal headphones.
That we've said on this show today will now lead us to our deaths being celebrated. God forbid they happen. And it's a really interesting sort of common response that we're seeing in today's time. I'm reminded of, the Titanic submersible. Now, that wasn't an assassination, but those people dying was celebrated all across the internet in a very disturbing fashion. And I think it's about this sort of redefinition of violence.
Guys, they're literally trying to make us believe like they wouldn't sit here and be okay with like the violence against their political opponents when Donald Trump is literally threatening that and they're saying nothing about it. At what point do we just stop? Do we just stop engaging and be like, I'm not doing this. I am not engaging with somebody that is this bad faith who, again, you want to talk about the grift? What?
Violence that we're experiencing right now. Your words are violence now. Your actions are violence. Your silence is violence. Yep. This CEO, the violence that he was committing on the daily basis was being a CEO. And I think that redefinition is really taking root specifically in young people. And when you mix that with the agitation they feel over their economic standards, the world that they're living in, the society that is increasingly becoming sick, we're going to see, unfortunately, more of these actions take root.
Yeah, I think you make some great points. Lindy, final word to you.
Yeah, and what's really rich? Leftists love to talk about gun violence, and I am a huge advocate for gun safety. But where was that? Where was that energy when this happened? Yeah. Suddenly it didn't matter at all. Suddenly they were worshiping at the altar of Luigi with no mention of guns, no mention of ghost guns, which is one of their favorite topics. But all of a sudden, you can hear a pin drop because no one is mentioning it. And I do want to mention, if this guy weren't hot, there wouldn't be this mass hysteria around him. I think a lot of
if he'd executed a female executive, there wouldn't have been the same reaction, right? It was the fact it was a guy who was a middle-aged white guy executive. He fitted the narrative they wanted, which was perfect hate figure for the whole health.
And we learned he wasn't even a client of United Healthcare. Right. Neither was his mom.
Yeah, I think this guy, Mangione, is a total fraud. And the idea that he's some kind of Pied Piper, Robin Hood figure, forget it. He's just a cold-blooded killer with a twisted mind who thought he'd make a name for himself. Got to leave it there. Merry Christmas to all of you. What a great panel that was.
Yes, he was going to make a name for himself.
Merry Christmas.
He's going to make it. We could say it again. Merry Christmas. Because I really appreciate you guys checking out my content. If you guys can let me know in the comments below what you thought, that'd be much appreciated. Leave a like and sub to the channel if you haven't already. Either way, I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one.